After Eraserhead, I wrote a script called Ronnie Rocket, and I worked on that script in a bedroom in my parents' house. I had just gotten married for the second time, and my father, to kind of help out, bought an old house in Riverside, California, and said, Dave, you and I can fix this place up and sell it, and the profits will be yours as a wedding gift. So I went out and had a great time working with my dad fixing this house up. And each night after dinner, I'd go into this room and write 10 pages of script. And I had the whole thing idea in my head, and after 30 days, I finished Ronnie Rocket, the first screenplay. I wrote a couple of different drafts. But anyway, I then set about to try to raise money for Ronnie Rocket, but I had zero luck. My friend, Stuart Kornfeld, was helping me. And even with his help, I had zero luck. And I thought, well, even though I want to make Ronnie Rocket, I think I better try to perhaps direct somebody else's script. So I asked Stuart if he knew of any other scripts that I might direct. I called him on the phone, and he said, why, David, yes, I do know. I know of 4 different things you could direct. And he said, come to Nibbler's, and we'll have lunch, and I'll tell you. So I went there, and before we even ordered, I said, Stuart, now tell me. And he said, okay, David, the first script is a story entitled The Elephant Man, and a small bomb went off in my head. Instantly, I knew. I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. I never heard the other 3 ideas, and that started us on a journey. Stuart, me, the 2 writers, and Jonathan Sanger, we went to 5 or 6 different studios to present this idea, and were turned down everywhere. No one wants to see a film about a monster like this. So Stuart was working, and Jonathan, they were both working with Mel Brooks. But I think Stuart gave the script to Anne Bancroft. She read it and really loved it, and she was the one that gave it to Mel to read. Mel loved it. And he said, okay, the 2 writers are in. Jonathan Sanger, you're in. Stuart, you're in. But who is this guy, David Lynch? And they said, well, Mel, he is a filmmaker. He made a film called Eraserhead. And Mel said, I've never heard of it. I need to see it. And when they told me Mel needed to see Eraserhead before I was going to be accepted or not, I said, it's been nice knowing you guys. And but as it turned out, Mel saw Eraserhead one afternoon at 20th Century Fox, and I was told to come there. And I was waiting outside the theater, and as the story goes, the doors flew open after the film was over, and Mel ran toward me, embraced me, and said, you're a madman. I love you. You're in. So that was how it started. What it was like working with Mel was sort of close to heaven. Mel, people see the humorous side of Mel, and a certain kind of humor, and those people that know him see this super intelligence and depth of, caring and intelligence. He's a very special human being. he was so supportive of me. I didn't have technically final cut on The Elephant Man. It was my first really, it wasn't a studio picture really. It was a Brooksfilms picture. But Mel supported me from the beginning through some very tough times till the very end. And he gave me a break in life that was phenomenal. And it happened that it all worked out, very nicely. The original screenplay was written by Christopher Devore and Eric Bergren, and it was taken from a chapter in a book called The Elephant Man and Other Reminiscences by a doctor named Frederick Treves. And their screenplay captured the essence of John Merrick, whose real name we found out later is Joseph Merrick. But it, I think, it was so important, their screenplay, that it did capture this fantastic soul, but it was rewritten with input from Mel, but it was rewritten with me and Chris and Eric. And we were put into a room opposite Mel's office at 20th Century Fox, where none of us typed. We'd take turns handwriting, and the three of us got tuned into something, and within a couple of months, I think, we had a new script that was the script we shot. I love ideas. And I always say that a script is organized ideas. And if you don't write the script, it's almost the same as catching ideas when you read the script. You read a script, and the thing comes alive in your brain. And you see it, and you feel it, and you hear it. And that, those words conjuring that thing that comes alive in the brain is what you follow. When you catch original ideas, the same thing occurs in the brain. You see it, feel it, and hear it, and you just stay true to that. It doesn't really matter. It's the ideas that matter. It was, Mel Brooks, he had a kind of a, even though it was comedy, he had a reputation and was able to get the ear and the eyes of, pretty much anybody, he wanted. So the cast that came was beyond the beyond great. Beyond the beyond. Because of Mel and the script, but it was a magic thing. So it's there in the film. You couldn't dream of up a better cast. Every single person. So you could ask me about individuals, but each person was such a perfect part of that world, and each person brought so much talent and kind of perfection. It was very beautiful. I think the film was, cast when I left Los Angeles for London. And I'd been to London once before. See, this was a kind of a strange thing. I was born in Missoula, Montana, and here I was going to shoot a Victorian drama in London with actors that were the world's greatest. And in a way, no one could really say how it came to be that I had the right to do this. So there was we needed to have a director of photography. And at that time, going over there, we didn't have one. And this person, because we were going to shoot in black and white, this person, would be great if they, shot black and white films before. And there were several names in the beginning. I met one cameraman in New York on the way over to London, and met really great people. But one of the people we were supposed to meet was Freddie Francis, who had shot Sons and Lovers, that I loved the look of that film. And I was looking forward to meeting Freddie. There were others that we were going to meet with. It finally, Freddie came in for a meeting, and he had been directing films. And now he was going to go back to being director of photography. And he hadn't shot a film for a long time. And this sort of went into the thinking a little bit. There were other people that had been working all along. It finally came down, though, to Freddie and one other cameraman. And it was kind of a little bit of a struggle to make the right choice. And Jonathan Sanger and I sat down one afternoon and decided we'd flip a coin. And whoever won would be the director of photography. And we said, tails, it's this person. Heads, it's this person. Heads, it's Freddie, say. And we flipped it, and it was tails. And we both looked at each other and said, no, it's got to be Freddie. So that's how Freddie became director of photography. And it was the perfect choice. Freddie, one of the first things we did was shoot some black and white photos, and he had a dark room in his house. We went there, developed them, talked about a look, went around to different locations. And in those days, there were many locations in London that were from that time. Many. It was so beautiful. After The Elephant Man was finished, within the next year, 90% of those places were destroyed and new places were built. So it was pretty much the last possible time when we could get, those authentic, fantastic locations. I came to Mexico City and was there a year and a half at least. And then Freddie shot the Street Story in Iowa when he was 82, I think. And he had been worried on the Straight Story to shoot, 12-hour days or 14-hour days. And he said, David, if you could just keep it to 8 hours a day, that would be good. And I said, no problem, Freddie, we'll do that. But as it turned out, we were shooting 14 hours, but he was the last guy standing. He had so much energy, and it was beautiful. There was this one chapter in this book on Joseph Merrick, John Merrick, and that was, again, like I say, captured in Chris and Eric's original script and captured in the chapter. But there was more. In London, at the London Hospital on Whitechapel Road, in the back was a medical museum. And it was run at that time by a man named Mr. Nunn. And in that museum was the cloak, the hat of the Elephant Man, a little church it was penny for plain, tuppence for color. You could get these little kits in the Victorian times that would kind of hook together, and for kids, and that was one thing that John Merrick had still left. This church, and also there was a his body was cast after he died, so his head was there, his right and left arm, I think his legs, torso, and his skeleton. So, and they even had his organs for a while, but they were destroyed in the Second World War. So, the cast of him in plaster was pretty phenomenal. If you know, Chris Tucker, who built the makeup, he was allowed to, for the first time since it had been cast, to take that head and in different parts, whatever he wanted, out of the hospital. Mr. Nunn let him take him out to his studio to make the makeup for the Elephant Man. But if you ran your hand over the head, of John Merrick, you could still feel hairs that were pulled out of his head and then lodged into the plaster. So there's real hair coming out of this plaster. It was pretty phenomenal. No, I never talk about Eraserhead, but the baby. But I was supposed to do the makeup for the Elephant Man, and during the summer of 1979, I worked in a garage in Wembley, going to work to try to do this, and I had what I thought were some great ideas, but they turned out to be not great, and so I failed in my attempt, and that led to 4 very, very dark days when I thought I would be fired off the film, and I was having nightmares about this, and then when I'd wake up, so-called real life was so much worse that I wish I could go back into the nightmares. And Mel was going to come over, and I was sure he was going to let me go. But Mel came over, and during the time, before he came over, Jonathan Sanger, made a deal with Chris Tucker to do the makeup. And all Mel said was, David, you shouldn't have, even worried about that. You should just be thinking about directing. And thank God for Chris Tucker. So it turned out, again, Mel was golden. Well, see, that's the thing. People like stories about these kind of things, but I think a lot of times people say too much about. But it's been said a lot of times. It was about 6 or 8 hours sometimes, for John Hurt to get into John Merrick. But John Hurt said, as the makeup was going on, a transformation occurred, and he just felt he just knew John Merrick. I worked with Stuart Craig, production designer, and it was I think it might have been his first film as production designer. So he had a lot of responsibility and something to accomplish that was for the first time. But we got along so great, and we looked at photographs, we visited locations, we looked at details, we just But I again from America, I never really felt like I owned this Victorian time until one day I go to, I think it's called East London Hospital, and it was a derelict hospital. It still had beds in the wards. It had broken windows, pigeons, dead pigeons, and pigeons flying through the windows. But it was so beautiful. It was intact, floor after floor, beautiful hallways, wards, and I was standing in the hallway, looking into a ward and then looking at the hallway, and I felt this thing enter me, and like ever since then, I knew everything. I knew Victorian in England. It was a strange thing, and I kind of felt like I owned it from that point on. You go where the idea tells you. So if the idea says, if it's happening in London, you go there. If it's happening in, some other place, you go there. If it's happening in a, science fiction thing, you got to build so many things. And but it's the ideas tell you everything. And so it depends on those. When the film was finished in London, it was almost 1 year to the day after I got to England. It was finished, but we didn't have any idea how it would go over. And I brought a print back with me for Mel, and he organized a screening right away for John Hurt, and I don't know who else was there, but it's over at 20th Century Fox. And I think that screening was, everybody's... I didn't go to that screening, but from, the reaction, I think that was the first indication that it might be something special from this one screening. But then the reviews and the things that came from it, again, were, just like blessings. And it was just suddenly, very, very big. And I was in Paris doing promotion for the release of The Elephant Man in Paris, in France, when I was having these pommes frites, these French fries that were the best French fries, and doing interviews, and I kept asking for more of these French fries. And the phone rings, and it's my wife saying that, this film just got 8 Academy Award nominations. We didn't win one, but we got 8 nominations. Well, I've talked about it so much, but I'm through with film, celluloid, because it's, for me, like I say, a dinosaur. Everything is heavy. Everything is big. Everything is slow. Film, even though it has the most beautiful organic quality, no two prints are the same. They break, they tear, they scratch, they get dirt, and it's ancient technology. As good as it is, digital is here. Digital is lighter weight. It's longer takes, 4 times longer right now, and it goes so smooth, so fast. You see what you're going to get. And if you don't like it, you change it and see what you have. In scenes, long takes, you can talk and start again and go, and nothing disturbs it, so you can go deeper. And it's very, very beautiful. The quality is getting better and better, and the amount that you can do in post is so much more than you could do with film. It's I couldn't make a film with celluloid again. I'd die the death.